I used to live on a small farm in the U.S. growing up. As soon as I was 18, I moved out instantly, and I'll tell you why. When I was 12, me and my best friend Zach, who lived down the road, used to go in the woods to play. Since we lived in the country, there was almost nothing to do. We would always explore and pretend to be treasure hunters. I always used to take my dad's old cowboy hat, and Zach would take his small shovel every day. If it was a bad day, we would just play some games on my Nintendo 64. This happened many years ago, so it was the best you could get. We would always go a bit deeper into the forest every time we went in. We usually managed to find something interesting in the woods, like old coins or water bottles, some nice looking stones, and some other things. Yeah, I know, really lame stuff, but we were kids at the time and we always thought of it as treasure. I had a small box under my bed to put the things I found in it, and so did Zach. We had an awesome childhood, but some creepy crap started happening over some time. One day, while we were exploring the forest again, we came across a well. We got really excited, thinking we actually found something good. We checked it out, but there was nothing special and the well was dry. We pretty much got our hopes up for nothing. We headed back home and another day was over. The next day was a Friday, and when we got back home from school, Zach went to his house and I went back to mine. Not long after lunch, Zach was at the door. I grabbed my dad's hat and opened the door. When I opened it, Zach was there with two other boys. They were much bigger than me and Zach. Zach introduced them as his cousins, saying they were staying with his mom and dad for the weekend. Their names were Danny and Simon. They were both 15, 3 years older than me and Zach. They wanted to come with me and Zach into the woods. I agreed, so we went there. It was just a normal day for the most part, but Zach's cousins were total a-holes, saying it sucked being in the woods and asking us how we never got bored out there. Later that night, at around 11, I got knocks at my bedroom window. It was Zach and his cousins. They told me to come down. I managed to get downstairs without waking my parents. I opened the door and the cousins asked me if I wanted to go to the woods. I had never been out there at night before, and to be honest, I didn't want to go. I told them that. Then they said, "Your loss." They went off in the direction of the tree line. I changed my mind, grabbed my dad's hat, and ran after them. I caught up to them, and we started to walk deeper into the woods. I was scared beyond belief, and by the look on Zach's face, he was scared as well. The cousins stayed in front, shining their flashlights on the spooky trees. I noticed we were going in the direction of the well. I know the place like the back of my hand, so I had a plan in case something went wrong. We were coming up on the well. Suddenly, the cousins stopped and turned off their flashlights. We asked them what was wrong. They stood still like statues. We went around them. I froze as well. There was a person standing in front of the well. This person was not looking in our direction, thankfully. I stood there like a statue, not knowing what to do. Then one of the cousins, I think it was Simon, whispered, "Turn around slowly and walk away slowly. Don't make any sudden moves." Well, I complied, and we all turned around and started walking back slowly so that figure wouldn't notice us. Then something terrible happened. I stood on a stick by accident and made it snap. It was loud, and we weren't far away enough from that figure, so we all stopped again. I looked back, and the figure was now looking at us. I almost fainted with fear. Then Danny screamed, "Run!" We all floored it. I dropped my hat while running back, but I didn't stop to pick it up. I had no idea if the figure was following us, since all of our footsteps made it hard to make out. I didn't look back either, so I didn't know. We all managed to make it back safely. I ran into my house and slammed the door shut. My parents were awake, and I got shouted at by my parents, and I was grounded for a week. They also looked really relieved. My mom hugged me and said, "I'm so glad you're safe." I was confused and asked them what they were so worried about. Then they told me something that made me even more scared. They told me that recently an escaped killer was on the loose, and he was last spotted in our area. And when my dad saw that I wasn't in my room, since he would usually check up on me, and the front door wasn't shut, they thought I had been kidnapped. They were about to call the police when I came through the door. After hearing that, I started crying. My parents asked me why. I told them what had happened. Their faces were full of horror after telling them that. They called the police immediately. Later on, they arrived. I explained everything to them. They said they would take a look in the woods. They did, and a half hour later, they came back with nothing. They said that the next day they would bring more cops to search the area some more, and warned me not to go into the woods again. I obliged. I would barely sleep that night because I was so afraid that the man would come for me. The next day, more cops came to our farm and started investigating the woods. They also went to Zach's house. My mom came in and said she found my dad's hat on the doorstep. I remembered that last night I had dropped it. How did it get there? I thought about it some more, and the man in the woods came to mind. I started panicking again. My parents calmed me down and asked me what was wrong. I told them about the hat. They had nervous looks on their faces. My dad took the hat to a cop outside. I managed to calm down again, and for the rest of the day, I just played video games since my parents had grounded me. Around lunchtime, we got a knock at the door. I answered it. It was Zach and his mom. Zach's mom asked me if she could talk to my parents. I told my parents they were at the door. Then they told us to go in my room and play something. I put my ear against the door and listened. Zach's mom told my parents that Danny wasn't in the house in the morning. After hearing the news about the creep in the woods, she began to worry. One thing didn't make sense, though. All four of us made it out safely. I was confused. Then Zach told me something that scared the living crap out of me. He said Danny had left the house when they got back. He left while Simon and Zach were sleeping, although Zach wasn't sleeping. Zach said he looked out the window and saw him walk into the woods. He wanted to stop him, but he said he was too scared to go out there again. He never came back. I asked him why he left. Zach didn't know. Then Simon came over to hang out later on. I asked him if he knew why Danny left the house. He said he had an idea. Danny always used to carry around his dead mother's ring with him since his mom had died a year prior to the events of this story. He always used to keep it in a box, and he would take it everywhere he would go, and Simon checked the box in the morning, and it was empty. He must have dropped it while we were running from that guy last night, he said. After that day, as weeks went by, the guy in the woods was never caught. The cops started an investigation on Danny's disappearance. He was also never found, and me and Zach never went back into the woods again. Once we reached 18, we bought a house together and became roommates. Nothing's better than having a roommate as your best friend. I'm 25 now. I live with my girlfriend, and I still hang out with Zach. Even after all that time, I still think about that night every day, and I probably will for the rest of my life.